Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
Hey, Frank, we are back.
We are back, wherever that is.
Another round, another episode of Perspective Shift.
Yeah, so it's the place where we shift perspective constantly. Because that's really what it's all about.
It is.
I don't even know what that is.
It's life. It's
I
reality.
I like to make these claims. This is what it's all about. Like, yeah, I think it is. I perceive it to be.
That's the thing. We love to create our own narrative to whatever's kind of jumping around the mind.
Yeah.
The monkey mind.
That's what I find interesting is like where the thought comes in or I get involved in a conversation. And when I eliminate the process of thinking, I allow it to come around. So I'll just shoot whatever comes out of my mouth to just kind of hear how it
Resonates.
And that's really what it does. It resonates, how we feel about it. And then all of a sudden, these analogies or dovetails come into the story, and then it starts to make sense. But it can never get to the essence of what we're talking about. But that's why we're here to
That's the
try
fun
to
of
get
it.
as close as we can to the beach without stepping onto the beach. And then we have to let go.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the driving engine behind this podcast, right?
No, that's the thing is we're going to try to explain the unexplainable as best to our abilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And even then it becomes unexplainable. So it's really, but it's just, we tell stories and get people to at least get distracted from.
I like how you said the dovetail thing because it's funny because the details of how life plays out and what words come out of our mouth and all this, when you take away the thinking of how it's all going to happen and allowing it to just be and flow, it doesn't really matter what we say. It doesn't really matter what we do because at the end of the day, it's just playing out and we are ultimately assigning a narrative and a meaning to it. So we're like watching this kind of go or what we say, it doesn't matter because it's like it's what we're doing is generating a feeling. And
to get back, the feeling matters, not what we do or what circumstances occur.
Yep.
And that's really what it's about. So it's about following your feeling and then allowing whatever comes out of your mouth to play out. And, you know, in the world we live in today, which has always been this way, like, people are like, oh, my God, it's political correctness. It's always been a state. And when I say state, I'm not talking about like a specific state, but a state in the idea of humans always trying to get people to stop bringing up certain ideas that are above those who seemingly think they're in control. So censorship is something that humanity's always known. So I don't know why people are getting on like, oh, we're being censored. I'm like, yeah, you're always being censored. I'm like, I censor myself every day when I allow myself to eat the ice cream cone because I think it's going to be caloric deficient for me. And and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing this weird game just for myself, and why shouldn't others do the same to me? But at the end of the day, when you're eating the ice cream cone and laugh about it and just like don't really concern yourself and don't feel guilty after doing it, it was all worth playing the game in the first place. You know, it made the ice cream cone that much more delicious.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Because if someone told me ice cream was healthy for me, I'd probably hate it after a while.
That's seriously how the mind works.
Yeah, it does. I'm going to start a campaign on healthy ice cream.
One thing that I thought we could kind of talk about this evening that I've had kind of bouncing around my mind recently. It's something I've been thinking about.
Like a ping pong ball?
Well, it's just so funny. So like, I used to be a fan of staying up late. You know, I would be like, oh, you know, it's time for myself to unwind. You know, and I'd label it as that, and I, you know, park myself in front of a television,
I was a
which
fan
is
of
a
that
box.
when I was younger.
Well, no, it's
involves
just
a lot of drinking and stuff.
Well, no, not so much that. Like, sure, of course, that was a phase
Yeah.
and all of that. But what I mean is, like, we have this idea that we have to unwind, and it's funny because we're not unwinding. We're kind of keeping ourselves in the game. And what I mean by that is, like, now when I'm tired, I sleep. When I'm hungry, I eat. And so, like, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're chasing an idea still. You're saying, okay, you know, as soon as I watch another episode of this, or I watch the next Netflix episode that comes up, then I'll get my fix. You know, then I'll be good. And then something happens, and then it's the next episode.
Yeah. But when you watch,
and we're chasing.
Yeah, but what's interesting is when you watch a Netflix show, and there's obviously nothing wrong with that to a certain degree, but you forget about the stress that you're holding on to momentarily. But depending on what show you watch on Netflix, you're just going to pick somebody else's story stress up as well. But it does something. It temporarily puts you into a different beta, like a low beta or alpha, where you're not even really thinking. I'm not sure if I got the waves right, but you know what I'm saying? To where you're not really interacting with the thought, where before when you're driving home or at work, you're overthinking. So it does start to satisfy the mind, but then you're allowing other information to come in, and then you find yourself, well, I can't sleep tonight. So they end up trying to fall asleep in front of the TV where it's a distraction. Now,
it's more seeing that
Yeah.
it's the this, then that, then this, then I'll achieve what I want. All of it's noise.
Yeah.
And to go to bed at that moment right there, you can. And you could get up feeling refreshed, type of thing. All of these it's our mind tugging at us is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's all. Because a lot of people would they set forth and say, okay, you want to live a spiritual life, a healthy life, this is the things you must do. Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of times doing those things aren't the causation, but they aren't the problem either. It's being conscious about doing things and not just willing to do, but the enjoyment of doing things. So if I'm consciously watching a Netflix program, Netflix show, it doesn't matter what it's on, it doesn't have to be a documentary, and I'm conscious about it and I perceive it from a different angle than maybe the producer of the show wanted me to, there is no ill effect onto it. And then I can choose to look at it any way I want. Because that's ultimately what we want to do is, it's not that we want distraction. We want to focus on something that excites us. So distraction is something that it's like trying to get away from something rather than moving towards something. There's a huge significant difference in the psychological aspect of it. So I don't want to move away from something. I want to move towards something. Moving away from is like a defense mechanism or survival mode. Moving towards something is creative mode, is expansive mode. If I'm running from a tiger or running towards a waterfall, is a huge difference. Even though when I'm running towards a waterfall, there might be a tiger trying to catch up to me, but once I make it to the waterfall, I don't think tiger likes water, but I'm just probably making that up. But you see what I'm saying?
The tiger won't jump, we'll jump.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of trying to avoid stuff, move towards something, allow the mind to drift and focus on that. Because when we focus on something we enjoy, it shuts everything out and narrows the field down. And then we get into a state of what we call contemplating, not thinking. And I was talking to you earlier about this. What's the difference between thinking and contemplating? And the way I see it, again, this is how I came to it, and this is my viewpoint. It's not the only viewpoint, but contemplation is thinking without the process of the con in it. And what I mean the con is when you look at a thought of pros and cons. Oh, you start thinking, oh, this will work out great, but what happens if this happens? Well, then I'll do this, but what happens if this? Thinking is going back and forth like a ping pong ball of trying to pan out whether it's worth to move down or give energy towards this thing. Well, contemplation is only moving in the direction of preferential understanding and taking away the negative or con aisle of the thoughts. So you're literally moving all negative thoughts, or what we perceive to be negative, in trying to start something. So if it's a business you want to start, people are like, well, write a list of pros and cons to why you should do it. I'm like, yeah, the problem with that is, depending what kind of day you have, the con list might be bigger. And if the con list is bigger, the common knowledge within that field of doing that would say this is not right for you. But if you did it on a day you were feeling great, it might be the opposite. But why not just focus on what you want to happen and watch it unfold? Chances are it's not going to unfold the way you wrote it on the list, but yet it will still move you towards doing something, excitement, and then it will unfold. And the surprise is how it unfolds, just like watching a movie. Now, I choose what movie I go to, whether it's a comedy, a horror, a drama. No one's choosing that for me. I'm choosing it. But how it unfolds is why I'm there. I'm not there to control the unfolding. I'm there to observe the unfolding. And that's what life is. So in a state of contemplation, you're no longer thinking, but you're focused on thought, moving and only utilizing the preferential thought, which feels the expansion, and then next thing you know, you fall into the experience, and you are running the business or moving towards it or what have you.
I like how you said that, because like the contemplation portion is setting the I don't want to say goal, because there is no goal.
Well,
it's a knowing.
You can use the word goal. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a goal. It's a knowing, but it's taking the idea of what you would like to experience and again, watching it unfold, knowing that will happen.
Goal is just a focal point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all it is. It's something to focus on, but it's not the end of the play.
But we often do this thing where like we must achieve our goals, and that's the tug of the mind too, because there's nothing to achieve while we're here. All of this is the experience. We've achieved everything.
No.
We're here. We're experiencing.
But when you focus on the goal and come to the goal, all of a sudden that just sets new experiences onto the horizon to come. So achieving the goal allows you to know this system is working. But it's not about the goal, because when you understand the system working, it's the complete kit of the system is what the success brings out. So me moving in a direction with little resistance, because I'm moving in the path of least resistance, that is the whole reason was set forth. But the goal is allowing us to recognize in the outside physical world that this thing is actually working. But the goal is not to be set forth. The goal is just something to focus on. But the ultimate, when you focus and block everything out, that is why we're here. It's because when I'm doing something, you know, say it's your job, you're doing the job, but you're worried about this. All of a sudden you're being torn, you feel this disruption, and then you think, oh, let me go handle this thing so I could stop worrying about it. I'm like, the feeling isn't that thing. The feeling is you're trying to move this way and looking this way and wonder why you keep banging into shit. Mm-hmm. It's because you're taking your focus off in the moment in which you're in. So, and that's, a lot of people call that ADHD or some type of, they label it,
But people do this a lot with their past. You know,
well,
they I hold this story. It was worse for me. You don't understand this because you didn't experience it how I did. We hold these ideas, and it's this concept that it's different for me is what we all. This is why like we like to talk to people and like to listen and hear things. We're like, oh, I'm not alone. You know how they always talk about like the average American has $2,000 in their savings account, and people are like, oh, I'm doing pretty damn good, yeah. And it's like
3,000.
we love to like reassure ourselves, you know. Oh hell yeah, there's a bunch of other losers out there. You know, it's like what? And we do these things to like we're like, oh okay, it's not just me. It's not just me.
If they actually made a statement like the average, American citizen has $2 million in their bank account. If people keep hearing that,
that's what I'm saying.
They would eventually have $2 million in their bank account.
That's why this is all such a game.
But then it's like the word average is some mundane word, the average person. Like the person saying that themselves, how do they know the average person? But but
average is something we choose.
It is, but I don't even know what the hell it means.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that even mean? Oh, you're an average this, average that. You know, and what are you comparing to? The brilliance of Einstein was relativity. So, you know, is LeBron James average compared to Michael Jordan? What would you say, he was an average guy? I'm like, no, I wouldn't. I'm like, you know, but when you compare it to something else, it's like, you know, it's all relevant. So we actually try to put this word average into a box. I'm like, you can't. I mean, just take it away. I'm like, what does that even mean? Because the reason I bring that up is no one wants to be average, right? It's kind of a weird thing. Like, oh, that's an average Joe. What's an average Joe? Oh, yeah. That's what we think about it. We're taught that. But, you know, as we look at this, I'm like, or we just redefine what average means, you know. But, you know, it's very interesting how society has set these rules onto them. We're trying to conform to them. We're trying to be, I want to be above, oh, you're above average. Oh, wow. Great. What the hell does that even mean? Right? You know.
I don't know, but I got a certificate that says so.
I'm above average, yeah. Mm-hmm. I've never had that certificate, by the way. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, like, these committees and certificates and ratings and all this stuff are
it's outward focus onto the world.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're always looking out here saying, okay, I'll be happy when this is conformed to my idea of happiness. This is why it doesn't work.
But actually, what's interesting is, like, we keep saying do this, but I have a feeling, and I can only experience this through myself and my personas that I've experienced throughout what I call my lifetime. And even the people around me, and it's even my perception onto them. So I have a concept of their personas. People are breaking away from this idea of average and what we ought to be doing and stuff like that. It ought to be done at the pace in which somebody's in. Like I don't know what my pace is of breaking away from this than the average person, because I don't know the average person. I only know a handful of people. But what I do know is I have a feeling that every human being has a connection into this field of energy. And once we put our signature into it, it will become the ultimate technology that humanity and this world and this universe has ever known. Or when I say the universe, it will be another piece to expand out into the universe. And what I mean is, it's kind of like I was talking to you earlier about this, but can you imagine you didn't really know what a car looked like, but you walked into like a garage or something, and there was a bunch of pieces disassembled on the floor, broken down, and there was 4 tires and this metal long thing, which was called transmission. You didn't know what it really was. And it's completely disassembled, and all you see is a heap of material. But there's nothing. You don't know what its purpose is. You don't know what it is. But you see the function of the wheel. Okay, that rolls. You start seeing things. Somebody comes along, has insight, and they start putting these things together like a jigsaw puzzle. I feel like humanity is that way. And we started as a heap, so to speak. And as humanity talks about, especially from anthropology, and as humans developed the frontal lobe, we started understanding stuff. But I just want to let people know, the way I look at it, you can look at it any way you want, that I don't believe we're supposed to be exactly where we are. But yet we're moving towards this knowing. We know things can continuously be easier, but we have to be present in order to experience it, because it's happening right now. But as we start to pick the pieces up and put the connections together, because we're starting to understand this concept of oneness. People want a quick answer to it. I'm like, there is no answer. If you ask me every day, define oneness, I'm going to have a slightly different answer every day, because I'm stepping into a whole nother field of energy that's going to help me explain it. So I don't take my definition and write them down and send them off to Webster, because they're going to change every day. I know it drives Karen nuts when my definitions change, because it's a drifting idea. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can with whatever that means. I'm trying to be honest with the world, because if I solidify a definition and hold on forever, I'm going to drown with that definition. I don't want to. But I believe as we move into what we call the present future of humanity, as we start to contemplate and understand that we're all connected, and if we live a life where we allow people to do their own thing, as we come together, we connect, we'll feel the technology evolve greater than any piece of technology humans ever experienced. Because we are the technology. The technology isn't outside of us. Although we replicated, like the cell phone, the laptops, those are replications of fractals of who we are. But when we're fully connected, there'll be a moment where transcendent into this world of survival will be gone. That is my take on it. I'm not a prophetic person. I don't have prophecies of it. But I get these downloads of information to explain at this moment. Maybe some scientists will study this, or somebody will look into it further. I don't have the guts to do that. I'll just talk about it. But I have these downloads of information that tell me to talk about this, even though I haven't studied it nor talked about it, but it's more theoretical. Actually, it's not more theoretical. It is theoretical, but I'm sure maybe people are always theorizing on their own. But when humans wake up and realize that when we connect and understand, because we are already connect, but be aware of the connection, who we are, and be yourself, that will be the ultimate technology, and we'll all see and feel the shift all at once. Just like when you finally assemble the car and put the key in it, it was no longer, it went from a heap of metal on the floor, heap of metal and rubber and leather, whatever interior you had, to this vessel that still has the rubber, metal, and leather in it, but now it has a function. Because right now, I think people are like, what is the function of, what's the purpose of life? What's the function of humanity? I'm like, maybe, perhaps it's to come together as one unified field, and then the function begins. Like, what's the function of the heap of metal on the floor? Well, one is to become a mechanic. So a mechanic has to put the car together, and you have to be focused to do that. You have to pay attention. You have to be aware. Oh, I see how this fits. And then once it comes together, then a whole new focus comes into place. Now it's about driving the car down the road. And that then perpetuates a whole nother experience that, I don't know, but that it excites me. You know, and that's how, like, I get these downloads, and they come from nowhere. It's, you know, I don't do it. A lot of times they don't even come from meditation. It comes from because someone cut me off in traffic, and I went to curse them out and realized, they're probably having a bad day, you know, and I come to that conclusion without giving them the finger, but I thought about it. But then all of a sudden, like, a concept will come to me, and I'm like, wow, all right, I let me think about it, contemplate it, or write it down, because I'll forget it. I'm horrible at remembering stuff if I don't write it down. And then I talk about it and discuss it. And I don't know where it's going to go, but nor do I claim to know. I only know what I know, and a download came to me, well, why not discuss it? And I think that's what humanity, you know, people need to be their voice heard. Even if someone says, that's just ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, it may be ridiculous, but, you know, to a tire, a cotter pin is ridiculous. To one day you realize the cotter pin is what held the damn tire on the car in the first place. You're like, oh, that's what that piece of metal's for. Oh, so we can't really knock anything. Even the most ridiculous things being said, I don't know enough to knock it. Now, I might not need the information where I'm going, so I just let it go. And when I find myself in this field, I find myself surrounded with the parts that are going to be connected to me in the car. So if I'm the axle and the front axle at that, I'm only going to be attached to the front tires, not the rear tires. So I don't worry about the rear tires. I'm in unison or connected to the front tires, so to speak. So my area of field will connect with a certain amount of people. So I'm not worried about all 8 billion human beings to connect with.
I think that's like one of the coolest ways to describe what's going on, you know, with this whole experience.
These are just concepts that come to me, and I'm like, oh, let me play them out. I don't know where they're going.
Well, it's funny because, like, just like how we don't know what these pieces all are, that's kind of how I navigate through my daily life. As situations arise and as things happen, whether I wanted it to happen that way, preferred it, not preferred it, whatever, I know it's part of something bigger. And I know that each moment, me touching anything, moving anything, passing something, it's all part of this larger, much larger thing, so outside of the realm of me being able to comprehend it with this little thinking mind. I just like what do they call that? The butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Where like you change one thing and it alters the timeline, etc. Everything that's happening right now is falling into place and unfolding exactly how it should.
Yeah.
And so, like,
you could think otherwise, but it's still unfolding.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, when you look at something, to look at it any other way but a way that best suits something that makes you feel at peace, it is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, and we start to understand it because now we're in a period in time where most people can get information on other people, such as
some like Facebook and
and Google, whatever form of information you gather stuff. So even the average person could learn about Buddha or Jesus or Gandhi or Einstein without having to go to a certain school where years ago, like unless you were privy to that information, you wouldn't know about stuff.
Go to the Himalayas, go to the monastery,
you had a
temple.
You had to really search. But now it's like somebody mentions, someone will mention something to me, like, you know what this is? I'm like, give me 2 minutes, I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I Google the information, and then that leads me down another rabbit hole to expand into it and see how it feels. So we're in this place right now where when I I don't want to say, I guess you could say the word study these people, everyone from Jesus to Buddha to Einstein. And I look at it from a different way. Because I'm not trying to beat them at all, because there's no way in hell I can. For one, I don't want to get nailed to a cross, and nor do I want my hair to look as crazy as Einstein's. Nor do I have a shot at hell of being Einstein and his intellect. But nonetheless, I study him, and I try to see the connection. And there's always a connection. And I have fun seeing the connection. And even everyone from Einstein, let's go to Jesus, and how, especially within the field of Christianity and, other, religions look at Jesus as this prophet who saw things. Even he understood, it is not thy will, but thy will be done. And that, when you translate that, and how I translate it is, he had no idea, but he knew it was going to happen. He knew everything was going to dovetail into the story in which it comes. And we, as we're the actors in the story, we're still surprised at the end of the story, just like an observer of a movie. That's the brilliance of it. So we don't just have to observe, we're acting and observing at the same time. So it's not about eliminating the persona of the actor. It's about knowing you're both at the same time. But yet, it's nice knowing that you have no idea, but I know it's going to work out. And how do I know it's going to work out? Well, I've known this. I played with this concept, and I come to feel it's to be true. Again, I'm not going to lie and say it's ultimately true, because I don't know what other people. But whatever feeling I step into the day with will generate the experience to match that feeling, and then my perception will follow. So if I come in and have, like, what people consider a negative feeling, like, oh, this shit ain't going to work out, and then at the end of the day, when you calculate, yep, I didn't make it to the bank, I told you this would happen, I was late, and my client yelled at me. Mm-hmm. But when you look at that and examine it, that's pretty good. And what I mean is, you called the shot at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you predicted
just chose the shitty way to go.
You predicted the day, and it turned out that way. So it's like, oh, wow, if I just reverse.
Look at your power.
Yeah, exactly. But because we're not aware of it, we think it's actually being inserted into our experience.
This is happening to me.
It's happening to me, so I must have been born with a faulty hand, as the card player says.
It must be different for other people.
Yes. And it is different for other people. You can actually see that. Well, why are they happy about this? I'm like, well, they're going to a very similar house. They're going to a very similar job. But why are they smiling? And then, in New York, we just think people are smiling out of the freaking mind. There's no other reason. There's no reason to smile. What are you happy about?
What's there to be happy about?
Jesus Christ. Wake up and look around.
That's
you
awesome.
sick bastard.
That's awesome.
Smiling.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I would put my hand over my mouth a lot in New York, because I couldn't smile.
Had to hide the
about?
Smile.
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with you?
Hell yeah, Frank.
Yeah, it's funny. That's why out here in Arizona, you can smile all day long.
No, it's so funny, because that's the truth. And setting that
I have nothing against New Yorkers, by the way. I grew up there.
I was gonna say,
don't put a hit on me, please.
We often forget the vibration that we're giving off is the vibration we're experiencing.
Yeah, and when you're conscious, you can feel it. And, when we become present, we can control the way we feel. And it's funny, because, like, again, when this download came to me with this concept, it's just a theory of mine. I'm like, play it out. I'm like, I was wrong about that. But nonetheless, it led me to this place. So, I don't need it to be right. I'm not trying to force it down somebody else. I'll let somebody else work out the details. But I remember when this came, I was driving my car, and somebody cut me off. And what it really was is, I was driving unconsciously. So my subconscious was driving, and then somebody cut me off, so it startled me. And my first thought was like, you mother... Mm-hmm. But I didn't act on it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was the one that was unconscious, not them. So I drew back what we call blame to myself. And when I did that, I'm like, I felt better. When I felt better, this download came. It wasn't from the meditation I did that morning. It wasn't being
on the top of a mountaintop.
Yeah, Bell Rock and Sedona. Mm-hmm. It was me being cut off and being me awake, and then choosing a different perception at the last minute, not to curse the person out, and really laugh about it. And this download came, and it was about the human consciousness, when we're all connected, it'll be the ultimate technology we've ever seen. You won't need, no disease can ever exist within this field. But we're working towards it, but we're not in any rush to it, and we're not behind. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. We just have to know that. In the moment when I tell myself I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and everything's happened, all of a sudden there's a sense of peace that comes over me. But then when I'm like, oh, I have to get there quicker, I start grabbing onto stuff. And the more I go through that field, I'll never stop doing that. But the more I grab onto something, the harder it is to hold on to. And I like the brilliance of that because all of a sudden my energy field will stay at a higher rate because I keep letting go of what's going to defeat the energy, you know?
We are a living Chinese finger trap.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
The more we struggle, the more the tighter we get.
But yeah, you know what's funny?
And then we're like,
if there was one right here, knowing how it works, I would still put my fingers in it.
Oh, of course.
And try to test it.
But that's life. That's what we're doing right now.
We try to cheat the empirical truths about the laws. You can't defy any laws that are real.
Dude, it was so funny. I was watching Mortal Kombat.
Oh, right on.
The original was on television
right on.
last night. Yeah. And so I was sitting there. I can't remember. It came on, and I was like, yo, I called my brother. I was like, get in here. We haven't watched that forever.
Kombat. Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, dude, hell yeah. Straight. Like, Mortal Kombat, the original's on. So we are watching that. And was so crazy to me because I'm watching like the characters like talk to him, like Raiden, the character who's got the powers, and Johnny Cage, one of the characters who's the mortal, in the Mortal Kombat, loses all fear to fight that four-armed creature, I forgot its name, and Raiden's like, he's like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? And he's like, hey, this is what we're here for. This is Mortal Kombat. And
it's called Mortal Kombat.
and Raiden, lets him walk away, and he's like, finally, one of them gets it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love it. Even in like movies, you can see these concepts playing out, which is, guys, we're our own worst enemy. We're our fear, looking our fear in its own eye. And them describing this as like this mortal way, that's what we are. Like, realize and see the power that we hold, because our day-to-day struggles is when you can push your mind into checkmate, you see that the struggle is only a struggle within our own mind.
Yeah.
There is nothing we have to push on, pull on, be afraid of at all. There isn't. And so like watching this in the Mortal Kombat, it's just so when you awaken to these concepts, you see them everywhere because you begin to breathe them, feel them, know them, and we are mortal, and that's why we came here, and we are here to experience this and to awaken to it and to see, holy crap, this is such a gift.
At some level, we're mortal and immortal at the same time.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
In other words, the corporeal self will...
The immortal's the knowing.
Yeah, exactly. There's something that lives on forever, but there's a part of us that actually is always fleeting. And so it's this and that. It's people are trying to divide it. Which is it? It's both, and it's a very interesting concept to grasp, but it is. And I've used this analogy before. But you take a bunch of musicians and put them on stage while playing different instruments, and they come together and they play one single song. It's one song, but having experiences through multiple different experiences of musicians playing that one song. So when you listen to it, you can actually see everyone playing at once, but yet if you want, you could focus on just one musician, but yet everything else is still being played. It is this and that at the same time. And it's not something you could wrap your mind around. You just have to contemplate it. You just have to experience it.
And you can't take it so seriously.
No, because
we take this game very seriously.
Yeah, it's like trying to dissect. It's like telling somebody, like, you have to come to the full understanding of what this is before you can actually enjoy the experience of it. I'm like, well, if that was the case, we would never have sex.
but
like,
seriously,
wow, that would be horrible.
Well, it's funny. I heard somebody say it. I can't remember who, but they were talking about like sex is sex because we need to procreate. We are a union. We're the there's this symbiotic relationship. We're all tied in. We keeps everything working.
Yeah.
You know?
Then why did God make pizza taste good?
We are one. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are all one.
We are all one. Yeah.
And so
it's interesting. And that,
it's kind of that.
Yeah. Right till now we have that. We have sex to keep this species alive. Mm-hmm. That's part of it, but that's not the only reason.
Oh no, I'm saying that's the reason they made it feel so good.
Oh yeah,
is to keep it going.
To keep it going.
Yeah. Because they were like, hey, if it's just all responsibility and shit,
yeah.
well, I don't know if we're gonna have enough people keeping
line them up, baby.
The whole machine turning.
Karen, do not. I was just joking.
I was just kidding. I swear. But you know, and it's funny because like I forgot where I heard that, but I was like, that's very true. You know, it's just it is what it is. We don't need to assign any meaning to sex. We don't need to. We do that as humans. We're saying, we apply all this meaning to sex, anything, politics, gay, not gay, transgender, all this stuff, color, race, all this stuff, and it's all mind. It just is what it is. You know, it's a person. It's a skin suit spirit. It's a spirit carrying around a skin costume with him. You know,
because the person,
everything's the meaning we're giving to it.
The person who was going through an experience that stood out from the society in which they were living in didn't know any different until they were told they ought not to do that. So then they were made to defend their story, and other people were meant to debate their story, and that's how it all started. But the person who was whatever they were, different from everywhere else, wasn't really thinking about it until they were told they had to explain. But you can't explain. I can't explain why I like pizza. I just do. But yet, when I was a kid, we played these games. Like, I would have to explain who the best baseball player was, I thought. And I would literally get upset. I'm like, you're wrong. This is who. But it was all my perception. There is no truth to that. If there was truth, there would be no argument at all. Like, no one debates whether the sun comes up in the east or does it come up in the west. When was the last time I heard a debate on that? Because we all fall into the truth that it rises in the east based on the way the planet moves and everything else, and what we call east versus north, south, and west.
What we as a human being
created. We all agree upon this is east and where the sun comes up, all right? So no one's disagreeing. People are like, the earth is flat. There are people but they still believe the sun comes up in the east, So this is a debate. It's not debatable because we all agree upon it. Now, if I wanted to disrupt the world, I can probably eventually come up with a concept to show you that, what we thought was west, it really wasn't east. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! So the South Pole are different. Yeah, but I don't have the girth to do that. So it's just some days I think
quantum physics has already proved that. Whatever we're going to look for, we're going to find.
Yeah, we will. And that's what brings me to the point and where we're at. So, what like when you look at science and the study of the material world, and quantum physics is a study of the energetic world, we can only study what has already occurred. So as we as individuals become more theoretical and move towards something, and again, it's not about convincing. I don't need to convince everyone of the theory I just laid out, that as we fully become conscious, and whatever that means, but we start to recognize that we're all tied into some level, doesn't know what level. Like the rear tires of the car don't have to very much know about the front tires. It just needs to know about the axle it's tied to. This will all come together, but I think what it will do is it will set us into a field of just exploration and moving in, and then once it's done, will we need scientists to explain what just happened? Probably not. I don't know.
That's because nothing needs to be explained.
Yeah, because you look at Einstein. What was Einstein? He was a scientist. He was a theoretical scientist. So he didn't necessarily set out experiments. Not that he didn't. But he would come up with these theories, and he would theorize and contemplate in his mind before he even stepped into a laboratory to see if it even worked. A lot of times, and even his theories, other people would, show it. Kind of like the theory that had general relativity with the whole, gravitational pull and the field of energy, and because it creates a pull, when light passes through it, it bends light. So if the Earth is creating a pull on the fabric of time and space, it's going to create a divot in it. So when light passes through, it's going to bend around that object because space is bent based off of the object being so massive, it moves that. And then it took an astrologist to come up with, I think it was like a lunar eclipse, and they took a photo of it, and where the star was supposed to be, it looked like it was off to the side, so it actually proved that it was bending around the sun. But during the day, you couldn't see it because the sun is too close. So then someone proved what Einstein was talking about, but it was already, Einstein already knew it, and then this helped validate it. So the things we know, but we still don't know until we move forward. And there are people to study it and then to validate it. And that's kind of what a scientist does. It validates it. And there is a purpose for it. I admire scientists because validating what happened allows us to continue moving on. Because if we, right now as humans, if we can't make sense of it, it's difficult to move on, to make sense of something else. So right now it seems like we have to keep grabbing onto things we can make sense of. One day we might be able to float in the ethers, but I don't know if that's the purpose of why we're here. I have no idea. But yet we also need the theoretical person, the creative person, which it's, when I say person, we're not separate. We're all the same. So Einstein was a theoretical and a scientist that experiment at the same time, and we all are. Just trust your voice and speak it. And don't let anyone tell you you're wrong. And try not to defend it as much, but do the best you can to explain it from the viewpoint in which you are. Try not to be Einstein explaining your own theory. Don't do that, because Einstein already existed. We don't need to exist anymore. And because I believe everyone is a genius in their own right, but if you're trying to compare yourself to somebody else, you lose yourself in them. We don't need another Einstein to explain the world. We need somebody else.
Well, that's why Einstein said, we are all geniuses. It's because Einstein understood these concepts that we're discussing immensely. He lived them, embodied. He talked about how reality is an illusion, a persistent one, but an illusion. Yeah. And so he nailed it. When it came to a lot of, he was such a forward-thinking person, like you're saying. These concepts aren't new, and I think a lot of us, even if we can't understand these concepts right out the gate through the thinking mind, because what we're doing is, until you awaken, you are operating solely through the thinking mind. Yeah. That's really what it is. With the thinking mind constantly at play, you can only experience life through the thinking mind. So when you can, look at things from a different perspective and allow yourself to have a more well-rounded view of things, these ideas don't seem so foreign. And the reason that we allow these ideas to even sink in is because we all have this innate knowing. So when we hear these concepts, that Frank and I are discussing, and we listen to at home, etc., we know them to be true innately. We know them to be true. We know this information, and it's
every one of us.
Yeah, does. And it's us kind of deep down. And that's what Einstein was saying when he was saying we're all geniuses. We all know this information. And that's why we listen and pick up on these little things, and that's why we love underdog stories and miracle stories and all this, is because we know there's more to this life.
Yeah, no matter
we know this can't be it. And so that's why we're constantly moving forward. And it's not until we give up and say, everything sucks, and then we keep experiencing that, and but that even continues.
Even when you get the concept of giving up, it never lasts. Because even if someone chose to give up and kill themselves, where do you think they went? They're just starting over again in a different field.
Yep.
And there might be a time in human history where people won't choose to end their life in a dramatic way because they realize, I'm just going to end up back here or somewhere else. And when you understand that concept, the concept of the fear or the depression that led you to that place wouldn't exist at the depths in which you would go to do that. You just simply wouldn't choose that at that level. So it's like being like a human being, you're born at the base of a mountain. You always knew the mountain, but But as you climb up the mountain, that very mountain that you knew all along is changing because the viewpoint and perspective where you are on the mountain. But there was always a mountain in your world. But now you're halfway up of it. And then when you get to the pinnacle of that particular mountain, guess what? There's another mountain range to climb. We're always aware of the mountain. But now we're on different levels of the mountain. And you don't say to yourself, oh, I wish I was born midway on the mountain. Why? Because I'm here right now and I like it. I'm like, well, you may be becoming aware that there's always a mountain in your life. You just, before you were at the base of it, now you're midway because it's a natural progression of expansion. But it isn't better. It's greater value in the altitude in which we look at the field of energy, but it's not better.
Great analogy, because the mountain never goes away. So as soon as you accomplish, okay, I got the job that pays 6 figures. All right, I'm there, right?
Now I need 7.
Wait, hold on. I'm still not happy. Okay. I got to go get a wife. That's what I need, right?
No.
All right, I found the wife. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good, right? 6 months later, oh, shit, I need a kid, right? That's it. I need to procreate in order to be happy. It's not the money. It's not the job. But, it's not the wife.
Yes, I feel
Wait. I hate my kid. Oh, God, what's going on? I thought all these are supposed to bring me happiness. There's always going to be the next mountain. There's always going to be the next, I want this, the next desire, the next accomplishment. It's seeing the operating system from above and saying, oh, no matter what, I will always want more. No matter what, this will not be enough. Life is not unsatisfactory how I've perceived it. I haven't been appreciating all of the satisfactory aspects.
Yeah, because when you focus and try to collect the outside world, it's always fleeting. That's why it's always going to beat you down. Mm-hmm.
But we say it will. As soon as I accomplish this, then I'll be happy.
And
that's just getting to the bit of the mountain.
Yeah, but think about this: we're awakening to this. I think on mass levels, we're awakening to this because how many movies have you seen over the last 20, 30 years? I'm not talking about this last year, where people were set out to do something, and they were in pursuit of something, and you realize right from the get-go, this person's chasing their own tail. Like the Wolf on Wall Street to Gordon Gekko in what was that movie? That was Wall Street, right? So you had the Wolf of Wall Street and Wall Street. We all knew these characters were insane, but yet instinctively, we went back today trying to do that. But when you're watching the movie and viewing it, like, this is insane. Why would someone do this? But then we go back to our place and do that. So I think at a mass level, we're waking up to this. But they're just like walking up the mountain. Don't wish for the top, because when you get to the top, there's a brief moment you're like, and then you see another mountain that's taller. Be present in every footstep in which you're moving through the mountain. Notice everything. Notice when you're midway, look back at the valley and then look up at the pinnacle. Then look down at the path in which you're on. Take a seat. Who cares? This is not a race. If you come to the understanding that life is eternal, what the hell are you racing through for? I want to eat this meal one bite at a time. And I want the experience to last as long as it can. Yeah, I don't want the food to go sour in my mouth. And I trust that there's more food on the plate, so I don't go too slow to where I starve while I'm eating. But at the same time, I don't go too fast because then I won't taste the food. So there's this place in this groove we get into, and it's the moment. Yes, you happen to be on the mountain, but it's not about the mountain. It's about the focus of the present moment in which we're in. And knowing there's more of the mountain and more mountains to be had is what keeps me present. I can stay here in this moment knowing there's other moments to experience. But if this was the only moment, oh my God. If this is the only mountain, oh my God, I'm almost at the top. What am I going to do? Well, you're going to jump off the other side, buddy.
I think it's a lot of just the conditioning that we experience. Because Frank and I are only sharing this from a Western point of view. We both grew up in North America.
Yeah, but even though we say this, but yet I haven't met anyone even from the East or talk about anything that they might use these other concepts, but I think internally they felt the same way because they're still trying to match the West. You look at India, everyone's trying to do it.
Absolutely. I just mean like in the West, we like the way we take concepts. Because in the East, they do believe in incarnation. Like they talk about this, on a level where it's kind of like we as Westerners believe, and we're conditioned. This is through society, through video, through media, all this, that we've got this one life and we must live it. Like YOLO, you only live once. Yeah. All these different ideas of like these public speakers, these Tony Robbins, these people of you get out there and you be the best. You can be or just be. Because you're going to come back and, get it on the next run.
So you're not really going to get it wrong.
Get it in 5,000 more lives.
Whether you're Tony Robbins.
We're rushing into everything that I'm rushing that I got to be something.
Yeah.
What are you rushing to be? You are
everything
you are.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we get stuck in this idea of I must have more because more is better. And it's like, no.
Yeah, and the paradox.
This is all mine.
Yeah, the paradox is when you actually let go of that, actually more does come.
Absolutely.
Time flies. It's the old saying, time flies when you're having fun. And when you're having fun, you're present. So there is this paradox that the power of the physical world comes through, and it's letting go, and all of a sudden you don't want this to end, just like the kid on the playground started out, 10 o'clock in the morning, and next thing you know, the street lights are going on. What was the indication that you better get your ass home? Mm-hmm. Where did the time go, and why did it fly? Because they were fully present. But can you imagine you set a kid out and says, you ought not to come home till the lights go out? And it's like, now you created a restriction. Now they're focusing on, they're looking up, oh my God, it's only noon? Then the playground becomes dreadful. You're keeping me away from this place. And it's not that they necessarily want to go home, but the fact that they can't. You eliminated a choice in which once you eliminate a choice, I can only focus on that lack of choice. But when everything is open, everything is possible, I don't have to choose. I become present. I become in this place like, wow. Oh my God. But I also believe these stepping stones from like the people that the coach is yelling at you need to be stronger and faster, to Tony Robbins convincing, they're all part and parcel of the story. They really are. Just like the base of the mountain is just as important as the summit. But some people think, oh, you get a better view up there. Says who? Mm-hmm. Says it's a different view. It's a greater view, and we can look around. But there's something magnificent about looking up a mountain rather than down a mountain. They're both magnificent. We ought not to say one is better or worse.
It just is.
It just is. But there is something, the ability to be in the valley and also have the ability to be up top. You'll find yourself there exactly when you need to. But if someone said the summit or the pinnacle is the place to be, anxiety comes over because now you eliminated the other choice.
So I don't know why, but I saved this quote from Muji.
There you go. You don't know why?
Well, what I mean is I don't remember.
Because it's Muji.
But I mean, I don't remember what it said. But I
it
feel like
matter.
it's going to apply to what we're talking about because it just.
There you go.
It was like, yay.
There's your theoretical understanding of life.
It was like 4 or 5 days ago. Okay, so let me share this quote. Okay. You know you exist. This is so natural. Not even your parents had to teach you that. You instinctively know that you are alive and that you are perceiving somehow. Not even deliberately, it is just happening, an effortless functioning, and there is awareness of that play. What more can be said? The rest is entirely made up.
It is.
And I thought that was just so powerful because, like, the awareness of that play, that's what we're talking about. The play being what we call reality, the matrix, whatever, the day-to-day experience. That's the play. And then we're the awareness to the play. We're also the actor in the play. But the whole thing is, it just is. And the rest is entirely made up. Because is this good? Is this bad? Shit, it's whatever you say it is. It just is. And that's what everything is in life. Every experience, everything we're going through is just that. It is. Not good, not bad. Whatever you mean, whatever meaning you want and you assign to it, it is that. And that's what Muji's saying here when he says the rest is entirely made up.
Yeah, so the part in which we make up, you're going to get a direct result based on the feeling or the perception of what you say. So if you say life is shitty, you're going to experience a shitty life. It's not the other way around. Like, I was rereading the Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like this even goes into the biology of physics. So to cut it down, I hope I don't destroy this understanding, but so it was always said that the genes that we come in with are what dictate our life, and they found that it's not. So the gene is pretty much a blueprint, or your DNA is a blueprint. How we perceive will change the figure of the protein.
The physical makeup of the protein.
It will change the physical makeup of the protein, and that actually dictates the experience that we're going to have in the physiology. So it's our perception that dictates, not the actual genetic makeup. The genetic is just a blueprint.
In fact, our perception can alter the physical makeup.
Well, it actually creates it. So altering it just means it's creating something anew.
But it shows you the power of our perception. It shows you what we're here for.
But that's the only power there is the perception. Everything else is just, like what you said, made up. Mm-hmm. So there is nothing else. You can't get around that. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting they discover that. So, again, where does genetics come from? Like, well, I have a genetical disposition from something. Well, if all comes from perception, so if my genetics come from my grandparents and their grandparents, right? Well, what beliefs did they pass down for me to do? But no one was ever genetically exactly the same. This proves that to be true. So somebody fed me a belief structure, which is part of my perception, and I keep making up the same genetic outputs that my ancestors did. But over time, I naturally change my perception, so my genetic makeup slightly changes. But if you understand that it is your perception that's creating the makeup, you then can free will choose the perception and then watch it unfold. And that's where the power comes from. So just by the contemplation or someone setting out there, what would it be like?
This is why you're the universe.
Yeah. What would it be like if you can ultimately forgive somebody that even killed a loved one of yours? What would it be like? Can you imagine the result of forgiving somebody would be the access to talk to your loved one whenever you wanted, even though they're not on this physical plane or in some other realm? Would you then forgive them? Because I believe that is part and parcel of it. I don't believe that the universe sets things up where just forgive, it's part of these things to get over. But everything when we move towards something that feels right, it always gives us a reason to why we ought to do it. But we had to do it first. So I had to change my perception in order to change my DNA output, not the other way around. People want to see results without their perception changing. No, your perception created the result, period. So if you want to see a different result, you must be able to let go and grab onto a different perception. Even if it's ever so slightly, and all of a sudden, when I see an ever so slightly change, I'm like, wow. See, I'll take a quantum leap, baby, and do it. Because even the slightest leap is a quantum leap, because it disappeared from here and ended up here. Whether I'm here or here in the universe, it's all the same.
It really is. I like one thing that you say a lot. Us walking, we are disappearing from one spot and reappearing in the other.
Yep.
That's scientifically 100% accurate. Our eyes, the way the eyeball works, brings in light and perceives. We can see us walking, and
sense of travel.
Exactly, and it's a perception of light bouncing off, reflecting. It's a series of events, and we have said, "Oh no, I see this walking." No, we're defining this experience. We're saying, "I see him walking," and it's like, no, you experience them moving from one spot to another, but they truly disappeared from one spot and reappeared in the other.
You travel is just
like right now, I am disappearing and reappearing at a pace so quickly, it looks as if I am solid.
Everything is. And we know this. If you ever gone to I almost use the word disco.
Have you ever gone to a disco? Definitely.
Actually, disco. Yeah, if you ever gone to a nightclub in the period when they use a strobe light. So strobe lights will interfere with the
Great
movement.
example.
And it also looks like someone's moving at half speed because the strobe light interferes with the visual
reflection.
cortex of you're picking up light. So it shows you that. But another way to look at it is like, so every movement we have are a still shot, just like a film. So if you take 24 strips, a film of 24 individual shots, and you move it at the speed in which we come to know as a second, that's the movement in which we see things on a universal source. So 24 frames
on
per
this
second.
plane.
On this plane.
Through a human being. Yep.
Yeah. So if I move it faster, it's going to look like the person's like on crack.
Mm-hmm.
If I move it slower, it looks like they had too much to drink or
Slow-mo.
too much smoke. Weed.
Slow.
So, but if you maintain the 24 frames per second, you get the idea of movement. But when you stop it, it's a still shot. So the light disappeared and then reappeared and reappeared at a time. So it literally disappears. That's how movement. But nonetheless, it doesn't.
I find myself, though, with these concepts and how like magical life is when you're no longer stuck in this plane of you're just
You're not trapped.
character. Yeah, but
More
you're
choices.
like, wow, what's playing out right now is my thoughts, my emotion, my feelings, and I'm experiencing it. And you start to fall in love with everything that's happening. And Maharaji used to say this to Ramdas. Ramdas, come up for air. Everything it's just perfect. Can't you see? It's just so perfect. Come up for air. Come play.
Yeah.
You know, because he was such an empath in the sense of, we have to, go and help these that are suffering, etc. And this is what I was talking about when, that butterfly effect, everything's affecting everything. These situations that we would never want to be involved in.
We think we need to correct
we don't. And everything is playing out exactly how that karmic experience needs to happen for that spirit.
That's what we consider the intellectual mind tends to get into.
But to think that we need to fix it is such an ego power trip move.
Yeah, but by all means, come to that understanding, which a lot of people do.
And again, I'm not saying don't help the poor. But this is how we make things black or white. That's how this mind works. Nothing is black or white.
Yeah, go help the poor in which you think you ought to help them, and you're going to come soon realize it doesn't work.
But don't think that's your source to happiness, because a lot of people think, I'm a server, or I'm here to serve, I'm here to do this, and then they're chasing this experience of, I must do this, I must do that. No. Just be.
And when you actually learn to be, you get back to the concept or the thing I was talking about that came to me. You allow everyone to be as they are. And the thing is, if I have a universal source within me helping me, why would I think the other person over there doesn't? Why do I think I need to help that person? Am I better than them?
These are all the mind.
Yeah, I was talking to someone years ago, and they're like, I feel like I should be doing more in my life. They were doing very well successfully, and they got to
financially or something.
They got to a point in their business where it was running like on an effortless thing, and so now they're like thinking like about life and like I feel I should be doing something. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I think I should be off in Africa or helping out. And I'm like, and I looked at the person. I'm like, well, does that excite you, or do you feel guilty for not doing it? It's huge. He goes, I think I should be doing something else. I'm like, well, if you're compelled to go. But if I were to go, I would get in the way, and the people in Africa would have to help me, and they wish I had stayed home because they don't need to be helping more people. We don't know. But when we get out of the way and listen, we actually innately help each other. But when we go to places, the places we're helping out people, it was the intellect that went there that created the deprivation of the people, and what do we help? And now you're going to help again? It's like if you're raising a child and they're 20 years old and you're still yelling for doing stupid shit, well, maybe you ought to stop because you were the one who raised them to the point where they're doing stupid shit. Like, at what point do we stop and trust that the universe source doesn't just work for me because I live in America and I have a PhD and this? I'm like, that's just bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's a weird concept, you know? But when you have compassion for someone and they have compassion for you, it goes both ways. Like, sometimes I driving and I come across a homeless person and, when they're looking my way, I'll acknowledge them and I'll see them smile and they're probably like, that poor bastard. He's in a metal machine. He's heading somewhere quickly and I'm just standing here. I don't know. I like to think that. I remember a couple of years ago I saw this little meme and it was... you saw it was, I think, 3 kids, and you look at it quickly. They're in Africa. You can see like the plain and the trees out in the distance, and you see the sun coming down. So it's like evening, and the photo's taken from the back of them. But there's a bubble over one of the kids. It's like, I heard that kids in America spent 8 hours sitting in a chair in a classroom, and a bubble over the other kid goes, "Oh my God. We should raise money for them."
I love that.
And it's brilliant because if you perceive someone needs help, it means you perceive you need help. But when you get into a compassionate state and see everyone for who they are, like Mother Teresa did when she was in Calcutta, she saw the face of Jesus in every one of those people. She didn't see poverty. Yeah, she saw a different way of people living, but she didn't see poverty. She saw Christ in every one of those people. Once we are able to do that individually and collectively, oh my God, what will happen? I know it's going to be magnanimous, but at the same point, just knowing that right now is all I need to know, and it keeps me present. I'm not racing to that moment. The universal source takes care of everything on this planet, everything from the ant to the butterfly to the individual beings. And if we get out of each other's way, we flourish. When you take your foot away from the place in which you planted the seed, the tree will grow. But if you don't, the tree will still grow, but it will be very hard and stubborn.
This is that contemplation. It's that knowing.
It is.
It is the knowing.
It's knowing without knowing what's going to occur.
It's knowing without having to know how you're going to get there.
I don't.
Because that's where the mind gets you tangled is we're like, okay, I want to build the business. Well, I got to do this, right? Okay, well, I've never built a business before, so I'm probably going to have to do this.
And how do I know what to do?
Oh, now I got to learn that. So I'm going to need 5 years now instead of 2 years.
And
so we build out this amazing plan where as if you're the guy who's like, I'm going to build a business. I'm going to go buy a hot dog cart and hot dogs at Sam's Club. And then he's got 12 hot dog carts at the end of that year while you're still on paper watching YouTube videos about how to grow a business. That's what we're saying, guys. Yeah. It's the knowing, hey, I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to get out. I'm going to start doing this. And whatever obstacle comes, okay, I will find a way over it, around it, or through it.
But that's the joy of it. Because if it's a straight line.
That's the experience.
If it's a straight line, there would be no worth in it.
And it will never be a straight line. It just can't be.
Can you imagine going to the gym and just
we say we want
pretending to lift weights?
I actually do that all the time.
What are you doing? Lifted 450 pounds. Like, yeah, you're nuts. You nutty bastard. No, I actually want to, because in order to do it, I have to imagine myself before I lift a weight. It happens so quickly you don't notice it. But when you actually become conscious of it, you have a greater effect onto it. So when I go to lift weights, if I'm just in there, I'm conscious, I'll grab the weights off, and because I know what kind of weights I can lift. But then when I'm getting bored of lifting weights, working out or whatever it is, I realize it's in my mind, the boredom. It's not I need to do something different. So now I grab the weight consciously, I breathe and push stuff. All of a sudden the weight goes up effortlessly because I was conscious. And when I'm conscious, I put more energy into the field. And when we're fully conscious, all of a sudden you wouldn't need to lift the weight in order to produce it. So I'm lifting weights to produce a stronger muscle, but that's a permission slip. That's not really the causation of it. But for me to just sit around and expand my muscle mass or whatever it is, feel good. it's very difficult for me to sit on the couch and pretend I'm lifting weights, but by doing it empirically, that is what's happening. But I also like to do stuff. So now I understand the causation goes way deeper than the amount of reps and the weight I lifted. It's beyond that. I don't really know what it is, but I know it was my perception onto it. And the more focused I am, the more present I am, the stronger my perception echoes through the universe. That's what I do know. Because when I'm distracted, the results in which I was looking for become minuscule. But when I'm more focused, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, I don't really care about the result. It was that moment of focus that is the most delicious part of the day. That's what it was. It wasn't a swing set for the kid. It was completely forgetting you were on the swing and just moving through the universe. Boom. And then the streetlights come on, letting you know that someone's keeping track of time, and if you don't get your ass home, you're going to get your ass beat in.
Kind of like what we're doing here.
That's it. We're beating people's asses for not getting home on time.
I more so meant getting lost in the swing.
Yeah, shit. The streetlights are on. God damn it.
And then
But there's some value to that. There is a value to this place of the game of hide and seek. And like when the streetlights come on, because then that becomes another challenge. How do I go in? And as I'm running home, I'm like coming up with a story to tell my dad to why I was late, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what happens, man.
And then your dad's like, Dad, I don't want to hear it. That was the problem. My dad's like, I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Get inside.
Mm-hmm.
Doing more chores tomorrow.
There's something
why did I even come up with a story? My dad didn't even want to hear it. That was the brilliance of it. Don't want to hear it.
There is something so exciting about knowing that the more you let go and the more that you don't know, the better it gets.
I would have been an A student if they told me that in school.
I don't want to say better because when
Greater.
you start practicing this, you see that better is not a thing.
Well, better has a connotation in
the third dimension.
Yeah. So we
in
can
this
change.
plane.
Yeah. Again, like I said before, we could change the definition of better or worse. Then we could do that. So it already has this built-in connotation where
what it is it's flowing.
Yeah, well, greater is a benign understanding because 5 is greater than 3. It's not till I add the story or the drama to it that it gives it meaning. And what I mean is, so 5 is greater than 3. Okay, what do you mean by that? Well, I owe $5 million rather than $3 million. Well, from a perceived thing in the world, wouldn't you rather owe $3 million, a less than number? So also I could reverse the story, and that's the brilliance of it. So my perception could change it. And I remember, Karen, she's a great study of writers, and I like to write, but I really never studied writers. I like to tell stories, so therefore it makes me like to write. And then she was telling me about Hemingway, and I find him fascinating, and not necessarily his stories, but like how he intricately, like he would spend all day on the perfect sentence, rather than trying to put out 1,000 words, right? So he wasn't a quantity person; he was a quality person. Again, there's no right or wrong here, but he would actually go to his friends or his colleagues and say, "Hey, I challenge you to tell a story in 10 words or less." And one of the stories he put out there, he goes, "Baby shoes for sale, never worn." End of story. So I remember Karen telling me that, and she had this sad look on her face. I'm like, "What's up?" She's like, "It's the most heartbreaking story." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "The baby obviously died." I'm like, "Well, no." I'm like, "I didn't see it that way." Because back in the day when Hemingway was probably telling this, there wasn't a way to know the birth of the child, or maybe the shoes were pink and it came out as a boy. They were never worn. Or maybe the kid's foot was too big. They were never worn. Yes, the baby could have died and never been worn. So her perception wasn't wrong, but it wasn't the only one. But when Hemingway put that on paper, he left that up to the mind of perception. He didn't get into the perception. Baby shoes for sale, never worn. We get to perceive it because there is no meaning to that until I give it. To me, that's the brilliance of just letting the viewer or letting the reader decide for themselves rather than saying this is how you ought to think about it. That is the free will. Because what are we talking about here? What are we trying to get to understand? Me and Mike are trying to get to the place of understanding it, and maybe it'll ripple out into people watching. It's one simple thing. It's freedom. And when I know that how I perceive is my free will, and I can choose to perceive how I want, that is the ultimate freedom. I could choose to be a slave, or I could choose to be free. That is on me. Even if someone tries to capture me. I've heard of stories of people in prison that were incarcerated that had a freer mind than someone that was in $1 million mansion. It's a feeling. And that feeling will generate out into the physical world, and eventually that person will be free from the 10 by 6 cell, or whatever the size of cell is. I've never really been in one. I watched a lot of prison movies. They fascinate me. You know, I was thinking, if ever in prison, I got to know what to do, right?
Gotta know.
First, you got to get a shank.
Check.
Yeah.
Checklist.
So it's like, hey, can you show me how to shank fight? Like what? Like, I don't need to knife fight because out in the real world I can get a gun.
See,
but in prison I need to shank somebody.
The probability of that situation ever arising is so minimal.
But just in case it does.
That's the mind. Hey, gotta be prepared for this.
Yeah, if I keep that up, I'll end up in prison. Damn it.
I think it's funny because I think why we love zombie movies is deep down people want a leveling of the playing field.
Like it's a leveling.
Just all right, we're all just here for survival.
Let's start over.
There's no, and that's so ridiculous. But I feel like people are constantly thinking they got a poor shake in life. Like this just, my cards weren't dealt to me the right way. Because I used to feel this a lot.
Yeah, it's when you focused on the outside world and you felt like you were dragged around.
Yeah. And so I think that that's the reason we're attracted to these ideas of destruction and all this stuff is really deep down we're just kind of looking for a leveling of the playing field when in reality, what you're looking for is a leveling of the mind, a calming of the mind. And when you learn to self-regulate and see that everything in your experience is a direct reflection of how you feel, and that this experience has no meaning without what your mind assigns to it, you're playing against yourself.
Yeah, or what's funny is there's a very interesting thing about the zombie movies, because one moment you're in this conscious state, and then you get bit by a zombie, and then you become a zombie yourself. So you're never out of the game. You're just on the other team. Right. But what is the representation of zombies, from a zombie movie? And again, I've never spoke to somebody that was a writer of them. But my perception onto it is you got the unconscious mind, and then you got the conscious mind, which are fighting against each other. So the unconscious mind will be the zombie. We'll just do whatever, food over there.
Survival.
Where the conscious mind is figuring a way to get out of this hellhole, right? And by letting go of it. So it's like two sides of a coin. So we're all zombies, and the conscious mind that's witnessing the zombie. And, and as people get really good around zombies, they learn little tricks like don't move, right? You can have the zombie walk by you. So, oh my God, I don't need to run anymore? No. And imagine one day there'll be a zombie movie when someone fully gets it. They can roam freely around zombies and they won't be affected by a zombie. Because as you get to know zombies, you realize, oh my God, they don't notice if I sit still. Or I don't watch enough zombie movies to really know, but there is a loophole in an unconscious mind to actually become conscious. That's another way of looking at these zombie movies. And that's why we're attracted to them, because there's a widespread of but think about this. A human being wouldn't be able to write a story about zombies if it wasn't already innate in the understanding. We're trying to reverse the understanding of how we ought to look at this. Right? Who are we? Are we the zombie, or are we the conscious people? I'm like, it depends what day of the week it is.
It depends on, is this before or after?
Because there are days where I'm a complete zombie.
That's
And,
it's so funny, man.
Yeah.
Because it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's all mind.
It is.
It is all mind.
And that's why I now I don't get frustrated at the or get upset at the moment in which I realize I was a zombie. I laugh my ass off that I just came out of the zombified field.
Great point, because like I remember when this all first clicked for me, and I started to see the operating system from above. When it clicks, you're not upset that, oh, for this long I was thinking this way. You see it all for what it is, and it's all good, and it's all part and parcel of the journey. And without it, there would have been no aha moment.
Yeah.
So to think that, oh, I went how many years doing no, you're back stuck in the system then, because it doesn't matter. You're gonna. What life are you referring to? The 10,000 before this, or the 100,000 that you're gonna
or
have?
when you were in high school
this?
too, it's a different life as well.
It is.
You know, even though it's on the same plane as we do it, but I am the character I play now is different than the character that I played in high school. Even though there are certain qualities and attributes that still remain, but they're actually faint compared to what I was in high school. And I can't knock that character, you know. You know, it's like, you know, remember watching, like, it was funny, you see these actors that made it, and, like, they're main, and then all of a sudden, because we want to know where they came from, and it's funny because a lot of them start out in Mentos commercial or something silly. Mm-hmm. Like, those are the worst commercials. They're so bad that you can't stop watching it. But yet it's an indication, like, wow, they've come a far way.
Right.
You know? And I'm like, who the hell came up with these Mentos commercials?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But yet it's amazing that let you know, it's like, okay, they came this far, and what allowed that? It was their dedication to focus on what they call their craft that moved it along. They couldn't speed it up. There was just main focus onto it. And it gave us, people that weren't there, an indication of what focus will do. And it's like, wow, okay. Because, you know, can you blame it on the director of the Mentos commercial, or was the actor that bad? You know, it's like, yeah, I got a Mentos commercial. Oh, okay. You got a lot of work ahead of you.
Hell yeah.
When was the last time you had a Mentos anyways?
Oh, man, it's been a while, but I know the Mentos
very
well because of the Coca-Cola.
Piece of candy, because it was like this long. Like, where you put it?
Like, I was just 14 inches. No, but you put them in the Coca-Cola bottle and it blows up or something. You know that?
Shit.
It creates this, like, some sort of chemical reaction. Yeah, and it, like, shoots. Yeah, I remember that
I'm going to
from
get
school.
myself Mentos and Coke tomorrow.
There you go. Have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
I like explosions.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy because we sit here and we talk about the mind, and even that in itself is laughable, because everything that's coming out right now are just details. And ultimately, what Frank and I are talking about very much so is a feeling, not a set of words, nothing that you can analytically peel apart and know from an analytical standpoint, this is truth. It's a knowing that is much deeper than that. It's a knowing in the soul.
Yeah, but by all means, analyze it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it, because this, like scientists always come to this place, but right when they come to the understanding of it, then a perception of common understanding shifts, and then even the material world starts to shift as well. And that's the brilliance of it. It keeps, you know, it was probably like in the late 1800s, because of Sir Isaac Newton, when he came out with his understanding of gravitational and how the universe works, there was at a point where no one came up with any idea or never changed it. So they were literally going to solidify his equations as this is it. So physics is done in the equation department. It's just now we'll use these equations to get more intricate with different things as technology advances. They literally thought it was over based on him, and that was close to 200 years after he came up with, or his time on this earth. And then a group of scientists came out, Einstein being one of them, entered into quantum field and then blew it open. They weren't discrediting him. They were actually advancing onto a different understanding. This is always going to happen. So don't hold on to something too tight, because it will fleet. Even Einstein's equations are fleeting to a degree. How quickly they flee, I don't know. But he didn't discredit Newton. He just expelled upon, expanded upon, and added to. He brought it into the realm of not just the physical, but the energetic field. Are there other fields out there? Yeah. There's got to be. I don't know what they are. Right now, I'm here in the physical world and the spirit world at the same time. And it's not about knowing it. I don't need to know why pizza tastes good. Just eat the damn stuff. You know? And that's what leads me to it. But the excitement and knowing I can perceive anything that happens in front of me in the way I choose to do it is all I need to know. And then the rest is going to be fun. I still don't know how it will turn out once I set the perception in motion. As I shift my perception, then let's see what happens. It's like taking the Mentos and throwing it into the Coke. You want to see what happens, right? You do it and then observe. And that's it. So go forth and set out, become the theoretical person, and then see what happens.
Believe you have received it, and it will be yours.
Yeah, but it will come in a way that you couldn't imagine. Or even
and that's the best part about
this. And if you did
thing.
imagine it come out that way, it means you're actually moving in this space where you're seeing things more refined. You know, but there was a glimpse. It's almost like deja vu type of stuff, where you saw it, you actually experienced it and seen it at the same time. That's kind of what deja vu is. And it's weird because you're experiencing it and memory is there at the same time, where usually you're experiencing the memory comes in a different lateral moment. But in deja vu, it's happening now. It's, I used to get a lot of deja vu when I was young. It's been a while since I had it, except for every time I realized, man, God, I've been married a couple times.
The old deja vu kicking in.
Oh, my God. I'm just joking. Karen will be different with you. I swear to God. I know it will. I perceive it to be.
I perceive it to be.
I perceive it to be. That's the shit.
And that's all that really matters.
That's all that matters.
You know?
Yep. Yeah.
Believe you have received it. It will be yours.
It will.
That's the most powerful thing we can probably leave you with tonight.
That's the shift into perspective we're going to give you.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to the channel below, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.